at the North Andover Senior Center, we take Wednesdays to transform this area that you see out behind us into a formidable luncheon occasion. It's called the Fresh Table, and it's a very popular occasion. And Irina and I take the moment to photograph and kind of illustrate what can be done with a special day that is set aside for a culinary delight. And may I tell you that this probably is one of the most popular programs available. It's on a limited engagement, and it's practically sold out as soon as the sign-up list is made available. The emphasis is on presentation, atmosphere, and a special culinary delight. Let me tell you, it's a moment that you just have to experience. It must be popular because they keep coming back and coming back for more. Now, some of the things that we offer: a salad, an entree, a dessert, and we always have something available to drink. Ooh, I got to be careful about that. I believe it's either lemonade or something of this nature. Irene and her staff are the wait staff, and it's always a very popular luncheon.
And today it was wonderful meatloaf, and it was delicious with the beans and yummy mashed potatoes.
Irene can tell you it all.
And for dessert, we had chocolate and vanilla cupcakes.
And boy, were they ever
with
good.
With that yummy, yummy soft whipped cream on it. Oh, I hope you all sign up for next week.
This is the Wednesday Bridge Refresher team. John and my name is Bob, and we do the Wednesday Bridge Refresher course, and that's for people who have know how to play bridge, but have been away from it for a number of years.
Yeah, I think it's a comfortable environment. Sometimes when people play in other situations, it gets very competitive, and people can get nervous, especially if they've been away from the game for a while, as Bob said. So people know if they come on Wednesdays, it's a very relaxed setting, and you're entitled to ask questions as the play goes along about bidding, or maybe a good opening lead for a hand or something like that. And it's a very nice group that we have going in there. You know, they're very friendly with one another, and they feel free and comfortable to ask questions. So we're happy to be doing it. It's a rewarding experience.
There's also another bridge session on Mondays and Fridays. That's for people who know how to play bridge and are more serious than we are. You can't talk in there. Mondays and Fridays, if you talk, they kick you out.
I don't know if it's quite that bad, but yeah, you can't ask questions, you know, of people, you know, along the way and that sort of thing. And the way this works here, people, just to keep it a friendly game, we call it Chicago Bridge, which means there are 4 hands played. And after those 4 hands are played, people move in pairs to other tables. In other words, the winners at one table would move on to another table, and people from another table switch around. So it's a way of having some social interaction. A deck of cards has 52 cards in it, so there are 4 people playing the game. So they each get 13 cards. And there's a whole system for people are playing as partners, I should say. So they're referred to as North, South, East, and West. North and South are partners, and East and West are partners. And there's 2 components to the game. One is the bidding, where people decide in the course of playing the game how many tricks, as they're called, they can make. So they go through the bidding, and the team that gets the highest bid and everybody else passes, they're awarded the bid. And they have to make anywhere between 7 and 13 of the cards that have been played. There's kind of a code language to it. If you've got anywhere from 13 to 19 points, you might bid by saying something like 1 club, indicating that you have a certain number. But that doesn't tell your partner the whole story. So then if he decides to bid because he's got enough points to answer you, as we say, there's some back and forth in terms of bidding, but you can't say, I have this or I have that. We talk in terms of one club, two hearts, three spades, another term called double. If the opposition thinks that they can prevent you from making what you have, it's kind of information for his partner that says, I've got a pretty good hand and I think we can prevent them from making their game.
20 years ago, a fellow named John Minahan, who was a high school teacher, started this whole bridge. And that was 20 years ago. John has since passed on. But, you know, right now, between the Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, 40 to 50 people play bridge here, and which is very active. I mean, other towns, people come here from other towns to play bridge.
And so forth.
And this goes back years ago when Charles Gorin, well-known worldwide, as he was the one that invented bridge as we know it today. And it's changed a lot over the past years, but we generally are playing the Gorin Bridge, with some exceptions.
Some people haven't played in years, particularly people in our age group, and if they played when maybe they were in college or something like that, and they come back to the game after all those years, they have some remembrance of it, but there's a few new bids and things like that, and we bring them up to speed on that sort of thing.
At the end of 2 hours, everybody has their kept score, and we have prizes, and we're not going to go into what they are, but there's a winner and there's a booby prize. So everybody wants to win, and most of them line up to be my booby. You know? So we have a lot of fun.
Yeah. The other thing is, we talked about the fact that you need 4 people to play at a table. So, and Bob said sometimes we have 4 or 5 tables, so we're talking about in units of 4, but you don't always get multiples of 4. Sometimes you might have one table with only 3 people, and one of us might fill in. We end up setting it up so that people rotate in and out. We don't send anybody home, if they come down here. So as long as they came on time, regardless of the number of people we have here, they're all welcome to play.
I'm a police officer. I've been on the job 15 years. As my neighbors, the Rosatis, know, I've had numerous canines. I've trained dogs. I rose up through the ranks. Luckily and fortunately, I test well. It's more of, what's this department becoming now? And with the violence out in the country, with the violence in the schools, with the drug epidemic, and with people's perception and fear of crime, what are we doing about it? We're seeing a change in the officer we're getting, okay? These new officers, the millennials I talked about at my interviews, they're savvy. They know what technology is. They know these things like I wish I knew. Mm-hmm. And they're out there, they're doing a fantastic job. The Crime Watch was started under Chief Stanley in 2000, I want to say 8, after we had a series of unfortunate incidents. And what it is basically what the mayor of Boston said: if you see something, say something. Mm. So we are very much involved with the state, and even that light at Merrimack College that everyone's talking about, that Jayhawk light.
The Hawk light.
Yeah, that was something we were in the room with too, talking about, and quite frankly, it's working now. Just took a little bit of learning time, but now everyone's getting it. So personal level, I'm against question 4. All right, one of the things that I don't like to see is the downplaying of what drugs are. Okay, don't tell me it's no different than don't tell me it's safer than alcohol and whatnot. No, all right, I've read the studies. I've been involved in law enforcement for 15 years. I see what's going on with marijuana, and I've seen kids in this town that have started out with marijuana and that have graduated to heavier drugs that have since passed away.
Right.
Don't tell me that. But again, that's not for me to debate, because I'll hear from the other side. I've already done research on this and spoken to people about it. It's an ugly question. The question is about drugs in Lawrence coming into North Andover.
Yeah.
And as everyone may or may not have known throughout the summer, Operation Blue Crush in Lawrence was conducted. And what that does is there was a bunch of detectives from area departments, including North Andover, Andover, Methuen, State Police, and Lawrence, working on the drug crime. And that's a buy-bust, where they make a bust if they observe a street transaction, and they follow up on it and make the arrest, seize the evidence, whatnot. Whenever something like that happens, you're going to have people knowing it's happening, trying to find other ways to carry out business. So you'll see an uptick in crimes outside of the city, on the outskirts of North Andover. And like I was saying earlier, now that we know what's going on, we have officers that are out there watching for these things to happen and making arrests. You know, people say shoplifting when they run into Kohl's, but if you run into Kohl's, grab $800 worth of merchandise and run out the door again, that's not shoplifting anymore. That's larceny, that's stealing, that's a felony, okay? And that's what we deal with. And a member on the SWAT team right now, we have one of the younger guys that's trying out. But the SWAT team, it's what's called NEMLEC, the Northeast Massachusetts Law Enforcement Council. And North Andover pays into it a small amount every year. And in response, we get access to SWAT teams, K-9, accident reconstruction, sketch artists, a rapid response team, which is, we can get 150 officers in here to do a search if we need to in a matter of minutes. Recently you had, in Burlington, did anyone see that last week? The one that went into the woods in the swamp? They had a whole team of dogs there within minutes, and they found her. So as part of the SWAT team, they're trained with area local law enforcement officers, and I actually saw them last week doing a demonstration. They're phenomenal, the amount of skills they have. We have access to that.
Really?
Who isn't looking for money? We talked about that in the beginning. Sometimes it's us, and sometimes it's not. So the thing to do is you can call the station and ask if we're actively soliciting from the association, and they'll tell you yes or no. And they can call back.
The
Okay.
regional police department, I said, I take care of North Andover Police and Fire. What do you, we take care, just send us a check for the police, whatever, in what area, of the country. Forget it.
Yeah, exactly.
Forget it.
Absolutely.
Bring it right to the
Absolutely.
station.
Forget it. Absolutely.
How about if the police call and he says, a policeman in uniform will pick it up at your post office box if you're in a condo? And does that make any sense?
No, not at all. We're not picking up money for the association, we're supposed to be out patrolling. That's,
But what's the one that calls me and I put a check on the front door and they pick it up?
Yeah, that's.
And I make it out to the town of North Andover
that's
Police.
not, yeah, that's not an officer picking that up, that's that,
Yeah,
whoever.
but it's, the money ends up
Yes.
with
yes.
North Andover
We
Police.
get a percentage of
Okay.
it based on what the company does.
Last year that was.
But,
You are.
any other things I can address for you folks today?
So what I did is I styled this as the prelude to the Civil War, but what we really have to do is we really have to step back a lot further than that. And what we have to take a look at is when the seed is really planted. And everybody knows, pardon me, what the seed is. And the seed is slavery. The Civil War was fought because of slavery. The question is, what kind of a twist do you put on it? But slavery is the thing that's behind it. And slavery comes to the colonies as early as 1619. In 1619, a man of war pulls up at Jamestown, and Commander Jope gets off the boat. He's Dutch, and he says, I have something you might be interested in. They're slaves. What happens is that tobacco starts to wane in the colonies. And the reason is the soil's used up. Tobacco needs a very certain soil. As the soil is used up, they find out that they can do better in Virginia and Maryland by planting crops as opposed to planting tobacco. And so the tobacco business starts to go south, and with it going south, slavery goes south. And supposedly, Joshua John Ward is the king of the rice planters. He's got 1,300 slaves, and he's making it hand over fist. So he's elected as the vice president to William Henry Harrison. William Henry Harrison dies within the first couple of months of his presidency. And John Tyler is the person who defined how ascendancy should work. He jumped on his horse, went up to Washington and says, I'm the president of the United States, swear me in. And they did. So as we come into the era of James K. Polk, he has this idea that Texas needs to become a state. Polk sends Zachary Taylor down to Texas with a horse, and the word is if there's ever a drop of blood spilled on U.S. territory, that means war. And of course Taylor goes down, provokes a fight, people die, and so we're at war. Now what we got, look at this. We got our original colonies, we got the Louisiana Purchase, and now we get all the Southwest United States. Is this a good war? Is this a good war? The reparations are proposed to be $15 million. That's not a lot of money for us, and to assume the Texas debts were another $3.5 million that Mexico owed to the people of Texas. And the Americans say, and on top of that, what we'll do is we'll help protect you from the Indian raids, because the Indian raids are really a problem. So the Americans say that, cross my heart, but in fact, the Indian raids become very, very difficult in terms of being able to control it. So this is popular sovereignty. And it says, well, look, here's the way this ought to be decided. If you have a territory, the people ought to decide whether they want to have slavery. How about that, Representative? The people should decide whether there's going to be slavery or whether there shouldn't be slavery. Lewis Cass is the first one to talk about it, and Stephen Douglas is the guy who takes it up, and it becomes his reason to be. Here's California. And a lot of people talk about it like, well, okay, so here's the Missouri Compromise land. The Sacred Covenant. Missouri Compromise. But wait a minute, if we say popular sovereignty, that means it could apply anywhere. So that by itself has a tendency to nullify that, well, we don't want that. If we drew a line all the way out like that, well, California isn't going to agree to split itself in half. So we got kind of a problem. Mary Beecher Stowe is a wife of a college president, I think, up in Maine, who a magazine went to and said, how about writing some articles on slavery? Or maybe she went to them, I'm not sure. And she said, okay, yeah, I'll do 6 of them. And so she writes these 6 things, which is the storyline of slavery. And they are so successful. They're just eaten up. So I'll leave it to you. You know, who did it? Was it Commander Joke? He's the one that brought the slaves in. Was it Eli Whitney or Francis Cabot Lowell? They're the ones that kind of got that going. Was it Franklin Pierce? Or was it James Buchanan who did nothing? Certainly it probably wasn't Lincoln. But I leave it to you. You know, think about that.
So this year, because of that conversation that's been going on, we were able to successfully, as a delegation, strongly support an increase to senior services in North Andover. We were able to increase the amount that's allotted per senior, statewide actually, but per senior in North Andover, from $9 per senior up to $10 per senior.
I grew up in Arlington. My father was a police officer, and my mother, until she was 52, stayed home and took care of me and my two sisters. And I started my business when I was a senior in college. I borrowed $50 off my mother, went out on the street corner and sold flowers. And sold flowers on the street corner. And I'm still doing that today, 40 years later. You know, and I never paid my mother back the $50, by the way.
Interest.
So what happened was I got into this little business, and by the time I was a senior in high school, the end of the second semester, I had 25 people selling flowers all over Greater Boston.
Wow.
You know, that's kind of how I get into this. And I'm a real big believer in small business and being a backbone of our economy. And you know, when you look today, when I was just starting this business, Ronald Reagan we were into the Ronald Reagan administration 40 years ago, and we were a country that was built on free enterprise, right, and personal responsibility. And to me, it was just to have the opportunity to go out and go to work and be able to provide for myself and my family. That's what freedom is. And look how this country has come in the last 40 years.
Regulations.
The options are, all right, we're going to provide for you, we're going to give people money to stay home and do nothing. That's not the American way. Stay home and do nothing, we're going to provide you benefits. Or the other option is you go to work and we're going to take 50% of your money away from you. That's not an option either. And what I believe we have to do is change the way we spend our tax dollars. Right now we have a $40 billion budget. Our state budget has increased by 50% since 2007. Under Deval Patrick, our state budget went up almost 50%. I want you to take a look at your paycheck or your retirement fund or whatever money that you rely on and say, has that gone up 50%? And the answer is simply no. In Massachusetts, household median income, as a matter of fact, has dropped in the last 10 years. We are over-regulating and over-mandating our local communities and our local businesses to death. And we have to cut back on that. Charlie Baker has put in place a plan to cut back on the regulations. We've identified regulations that have been put in place over the last generation, and we're starting to cut back against the over-regulation. The third thing is we have to set different priorities about how we spend our money. Property taxes in Massachusetts continue to be one of the main sources of how people fund local services. And what we have to do is bring more money back from Boston, get it out of the hands of what I call the bureaucrats and the patronage, people on Beacon Hill, and bring the money back to our local communities. So people in Andover, and North Andover, and Boxford, and Tewksbury, those are the ones who make the decision where our tax dollars should go. And that's a very, very important part of what I want to see happen.
I refer to World War II veterans as our national treasure. They have been called the greatest generation for a number of years, and I like to be a little different and call them the national treasure. So I have the opportunity, the honor to introduce Mr. Paul Mazzarella. He joined the Navy right after Pearl Harbor. He served on 2 different light cruises in the Pacific during the war. The first ship was the USS San Diego, and the second ship was the USS Vicksburg. Paul has 8 children, 25 grandchildren,
Wow.
13 great-grandchildren,
And 2 on the way.
and 2 on the way.
Well, I joined the Navy when I was 18, and at Newport, Rhode Island. As I say, this was the ship I was on.
Oh, the ship.
And I was in Taranaki.
The ship was
One and a half foot line.
Wow.
That's a picture of the Vicksburg.
Oh, can you pass that around?
Yeah, sure. We lost the carrier Yorktown and carrier Lexington. And we were pretty well shot at that point. And about midway, we lost more ships. We never got hit. We went through the whole war. I wasn't on it all the time. I got off in, what year am I?
42, 43?
Let's see, 1944, the end of 44. I thought I was gonna have it easy and went back to Boston, had 30-day leave. And there was a ship waiting for me in Yorktown. My job was a gun captain. And every time the ship was firing, I was the only one that had to stay there. They could go, lock up. But I had to stay with the phone all the time. And every time it fired, I took that thing I put over my head to protect my head. And every time they fired around, it would go boom, boom, boom. I was so banged up, I wanted to go to the hospital. I forget the name of the hospital ship. But anyways, I went aboard that, figured I could get something. They let me get out of the Navy or something. Anyways, I said, get the hell out of here, there's nothing wrong with you. So I went back, and I could see the torpedoes on the starboard side, was right heading for us. And the captain up above, they saw it too. And I swung the ship right around completely, and we headed right for one of our own ships. It was in the task force. And we were just lucky to stop the town. And we were both got blown up. But, boy, it's a great time. A hell of a good time, too.
Mr. Stephen Collins.
If you cannot understand my argument and declare it's Greek to me, you are quoting Shakespeare. If you claim to be more sinned against than sinning, you are quoting Shakespeare. If you recall your salad days, you are quoting Shakespeare. If you act more in sorrow than in anger, if you played fast and loose, if you've been tongue-tied, a tower of strength, hoodwinked, or in a pickle, if you've ever knitted your brows, made a virtue of necessity, insisted on fair play, slept not one wink, stood on ceremony, danced attendance on your lord and master, had short shrift, cold comfort, or too much of a good thing, if you've seen better days or lived in a fool's paradise, why then be that as it may, the more fool you, for it is a foregone conclusion that you are as good luck would have it, quoting Shakespeare. If you think it is early days, and clear out bag and baggage, if you think it is high time, and that is the long and short of it, if you think the game is up, and the truth will out, even if it involves your own flesh and blood, if you lie low till the crack of doom, because you suspect foul play, if you have your teeth set on edge at one fell swoop, without rhyme or reason, well then to give the devil his due if the truth were known, for surely you have a tongue in your head, you are quoting Shakespeare. Even if you bid me good riddance, if you send me packing, if you wish I were dead as a doornail, if you think I'm an eyesore, a laughingstock, the devil incarnate, a stony-hearted villain, bloody-minded, or a blinking idiot, well then by Jove, oh Lord, tut-tut, what the dickens, for goodness sake, but me no buts, for it is all one to me, you are quoting Shakespeare. Thank you.